Craig, you're a little extra today.
Am I extra? Yeah.
Being a little extra today, Craig.
I try not to be extra, but it happens. Matt wants to see me in my leathers and spikes.
Who doesn't? Don't single me out.
There's a list of our friends who would not mind seeing you in leathers and spikes, Greg. Speaking of the comic book bears, make sure you tune in Monday night. Fun stuff. Craig's over here shooting up at the table.
Yeah, I've just ate my breakfast.
Party on.
To give myself a dose.
It's going to be that guy. Hey, it's Father's Day. Let that man
That's right. You do what you want.
Hey, that is right. I feel better now about eating McDonald's after seeing those pictures of me yesterday.
Well, hey, everybody. This is another episode of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. And per usual, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And I'm Craig Lance.
And it is Father's Day. So, as I said, shout out to our very own Craig, the dad of the group.
The dad. Yes, I am the father of this group as well.
That's right.
You don't have any wayward kids out there in the world, do you, Matt? Or it's just
Wayward?
Yeah.
No, I do not.
Illegitimate?
No.
None of those either.
Just us, just you and me.
It's just boring. No fascinating.
I took certain precautions, like homosexuality, just to make sure I didn't have that problem. But this is episode, I believe, 182. I've been off on my episode numbering game because I don't have to upload it the same way since we've been off of COVID. So I have been saving my files differently. So I need to go back and learn how to apparently, keep up with data.
Why?
I gave up counting a whole long time ago.
Well, when I started this thing, I was told there'd be no math.
Well, there is no math because I try to do that. That way that you don't have to.
Well, don't let anybody ever talk you into playing Dungeons and Dragons then if you
talking about math. I thought Dungeons and Dragons was about Satan worship.
Well, of course, but it's also math.
It's killing monsters with math.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. Also, hey, since we're talking about holidays and stuff, yesterday was was Juneteenth, so it's now a national holiday.
I thought you were going to say it was the anniversary of baseball.
It also is.
It was.
It also is the anniversary, the quote unquote official birthday of baseball. Yeah. But it's official. Why is it official, Craig?
Because they don't really know when it started, so They just made up a date.
It's kind of like
the first recorded game where they kept score and all of that happened in 1847.
Fascinating.
On yesterday's date. Kind of like Cher. No one knows really how old she is.
No,
so just keep doing it.
But no, yesterday
was Juneteenth. So and it's absolutely. Actually the first time we ever, as a nation, have celebrated that as a federal holiday.
I heard in the South we're going to tell them it's like David Duke's birthday or something, so that they will celebrate it.
I wouldn't put it past. I mean, Arkansas does that. We have Arkansas
Confederacy Day. Is that what we're going to call it?
Yeah, they couldn't just have Martin Luther King Jr. Day. They had to name it after a Confederate general just to justify it.
So it's Loser Day?
Yeah, right. Participation Trophy Day. Anyway, not do that. So
yeah, happy Juneteenth to everybody.
So I thought about that yesterday because I put up a post that said Happy Juneteenth. It's kind of weird to say Happy Juneteenth, right? And I'm saying this as a white dude, but it's one of those things. It's like Happy Memorial Day. It's not really something it's something people say, but when you think about it, it's like let's celebrate. People died.
Well, I mean, Juneteenth is more about the day that it became official that slavery had ended in Texas, right?
Yeah, I think was 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. It finally got down to Galveston. So, little cool bit of history there.
So in that case, happy Juneteenth. Yeah.
Celebrate it. Think about where we've come from as a nation, and look at how we can do better.
Further we still have.
Yeah, we still have a lot of work to do. But that's not. We're not a history podcast. We're a comic book podcast. So
speaking of which, Comic Con.
I was going to ask.
Go to a local Comic Con yesterday, which it's a smaller local con. What is the official name of it? Saline County Comic Con. And I always want to say Saline instead of Saline.
Yeah. I think it's Saline County, so it probably needs more saline and less saline in the county. So,
but overall, it's a small con, but it was just nice to be at a con again, regardless of our fears. There are definite fears in your first time in that crowded of a venue, but I'm not coughing and sneezing this morning outside of my regular allergies. So.
Nice, very cool. Did you bring home any cool swag?
I got a couple of Star Wars, the original vintage 12-inch Star Wars. I got a Darth Vader and a C-3PO. I paid a pretty decent price on them.
Very cool.
And by decent, I mean low price.
Right.
Yeah. Not like extravagant, decent
I
price.
heard a rumor Mr. Matt Trogdon made an appearance at this thing as well.
Yes, I was there briefly, and I left there with about 20 comics.
Nice.
And I dove through the $2 boxes, $1 boxes, looking for fodder for the show, and you're all going to hear about them.
Did you win?
He did win.
Found quite the winners.
Fodder aplenty.
He found some Spanish Conans.
Volcano El Barbero. El Barbero.
And
Do I have
even
that
though
right?
we didn't
Barbaro.
understand
Barbaro.
them, they were better than the current run.
I want a T-shirt of that Spanish logo.
Yeah, no
It'd be
doubt.
amazing.
You got to be able to get one. I'm sure they have some.
So
Have to go do some Google sleuthing.
amazingly enough, at the con, there was a Marvel Family #1 10-cent comic from Fawcett. I think our local store owner may be buying it today.
Really?
Yeah, he's really debating it because he thinks he can flip it pretty quickly, but I think he's going to buy it today.
Wow.
Nice. That's kind of cool. What was it? Just out of curiosity, what was it going for? Roundabout.
$8,500, but they said make an offer, so
Yeah.
he's going to, of course, try not to pay $8,500
Oh,
for
sure.
it. But the good thing about having a comic like that is you have a comic that's worth that price. The bad thing is that trying to flip it, most people aren't going to a Comic Con carrying $10,000 in their pocket. So
You gotta find somebody who will pay that price.
Yeah.
Which is auctions and usually stuff like that.
So I got to hold it, so that was it scared me to death.
I
I'm
wouldn't
like,
have.
please don't crumble in my hand.
I wouldn't have.
It was in a bag and board, of course, but
Yeah.
it was still.
Like, I'm not touching that.
No, thank you.
Yeah, we don't do phrasing on this show.
And we haven't for a long, long time. So I didn't get a chance to go. I'm glad you guys had a good time. I think the first con I'm going to get to go to is probably the one in September here in Little Rock.
The Arkansas Comic Con.
Yeah, that one looks like
They've got a
it's gonna be
lot
the
of
first
good
one.
entertainment guests that are going to be there.
Yeah, which is not something I give a shit about. So that's just
Yeah,
one of those things.
I'm not. A
I
so-
don't generally care about it, but when there's Star Wars guests, I do care about it. So,
Yeah, that's always been your thing. Now
and Bruce Campbell's going to be there too. So.
I still don't give a shit.
I'm just not a celebrity person. I don't.
Yeah.
Really, don't
I mean, I'm not somebody that necessarily loves to go for celebrities, but like I said, if they're Star Wars people, I'm going to get them to sign my book. So.
Yeah, there's some wrestlers that are supposed to be there as well. I think isn't Sting supposed to be
sure.
there? So, yeah, I mean there's
I
a
need
whole
to
lot of
check
people.
The guest list. but-
I was looking at they have like the whole like poster out right now, but it's all like you said, it's not comics people, and that's just something I'm like, yeah, I'm not.
Most
Not
comic cons, quote unquote comic cons, have changed into these entertainment cons anyway.
pop
So
culture cons
Yeah.
like that. The one went to yesterday. I mean, very much than less. The half the tables had comics on them.
yeah, it was toys and
That's
Yeah,
why
mostly
I
toys.
hadn't planned on even going, but I was told there was some comic vendors. So I thought I'd give
there
it a
were
chance.
some comic vendors there.
Yeah.
though.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Had a good little run. Nice. Fingers crossed. Like I said, I'm looking forward to get back to cons. Miss them.
Again, that first one was just a little scary on the.
Yeah, I was apprehensive on the way.
Yeah.
I was like,
Rip the Band-Aid off.
and then
I mean, eventually we have to be willing to put ourselves back out there. But,
Do we? Can I not just
kinda
stay
hate
inside
people
all
in
the time?
general, so.
I just want to live in my bubble and not be bothered. Well, all right. So, in the midst of going to cons and all of that fun stuff, did you guys get a chance to read any comics this week?
Yeah.
Somebody drop a short stack on us.
I read a few. I read Star Wars #14, which is, of course, continuing the story of War of the Bounty Hunters and the search for Han Solo. It's Charles Soule, Ramon Rosanas, and Rochelle Rosenberg.
Mhm.
This is Luke, Leia, Chewbacca, and Lando going after... Well, they're going to the auction for Han Solo's body. So, and then I read Brzrkr #3. Keanu Reeves, Matt Kent, Bill Crabtree, Boom Studios, of course, puts it out. I was telling Matt earlier, I wish we could get this crew to write Conan, because the first 3 or 4 pages in this book were just absolutely brutal. And then, some middle pages were pretty brutal, and it was what you expect out of a Conan book. So, and then I also read Planet Size X-Men, Gary Dugan and Pepe Larraz, Marvel Comics. Yeah, that book. Anybody else read that?
Yep.
Have not made it to that yet. I did read I think it was X-Men 21, which is leading up to that.
Yeah, they colonize Mars.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, and do it using their mutant powers to rebuild Mars in a couple of days.
Freaking Magneto, man.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to need some iron, and he's like, iron won't be a problem.
that was pretty badass.
And then Bobby, of course, is putting the ice caps on, and he's talking back to the gala event, and he's like, you guys wanted fireworks, here you go.
Yeah.
So, you had, 5 or 6 Omega level mutants there. It was insane.
Yeah.
Now, they've had a little encampment on Mars for a while now. Isn't that where their, whole flower, the orchid shop is? Or
yes, and that's part of the problem is that they were using the Savage Land, and they lost control of the Savage Land, apparently, in one of the books I'm not reading. And so they needed more space to grow, more medicine.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. And then they moved the Arcoans there.
Nice.
To get them away from the Krakoans, because it was freaking out the rest of the planet.
Right.
There's now 2 islands floating around with millions of mutants instead of a handful.
Nice.
So it was, the one dude said there's one that's got his biology is ocean water, one of the Arcoan mutants, and he donates quote unquote some blood, which has ocean water and and all of the microbes that would be in ocean water. So it's pretty insane how they go about recreating this planet.
Yeah, pretty smart writing.
It's Hickman. One of the most.
It's Duggan.
Is this Duggan? Yeah. Okay,
Dugan, however you say it.
Well, one of the most brilliant things out of this new resurgence of the X-Men is how they're using the team ups. Hickman did it with was it the 5 or the 6 that team up to use their powers to make them immortal, to do the resurrection thing. I've never seen there's always been, you have the fastball special. You've got certain things where they use their powers in tandem. This is the first time anybody's ever taken that to the next level.
They are definitely doing that in these books.
It's brilliant. It really is brilliant. And the question is, where do they go from here?
Well, it's kind of like what they need to do with Reed Richards. Sit down and think about what his powers, what he could really do with it, instead of just being an evil genius. To sit down and look at these mutants and go, okay, this guy creates balls of gold.
Right.
What is he really creating? Well, let's make them eggs.
Yeah.
So to be able to kind of reevaluate their powers and enhance them and... Yeah.
It's some next level stuff. I'm curious to see where they go, and also just curious to see what Icarus flying too close to the sun, what actually brings them down. I have a theory on that. I think I know, but I'll be curious to see if
Sabretooth.
I think it's Mystique.
Oh my gosh!
So
she's going to release Sabretooth.
Please make it so.
Yes, but also the whole thing, you got to remember back from Hoxpox, Moira. They're keeping Moira in hiding because if Mystique's wife finds out about it, then it ruins the timeline. It ends everything. That's why Charles won't bring Destiny
also because
back.
He's an evil.
Because he's an evil jackass. But it's if he brings Destiny back, Moira gets found out and the world ends. So it's like, is he doing something shitty? Yes, but is he doing something shitty?
The world doesn't end. Their version of what their current timeline ends.
Well, yeah, but in that thing that was saying this is the last timeline. If I need to go back and revisit that. But I'm fairly certain.
They don't give us a count, but they believe this is the last
this is the last one.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting. I think Mystique is the linchpin to all this. Is going to bring it all down. So
I hope so.
Matt wants it to end.
I want the turmoil.
Yeah, I'm ready for the turmoil.
I'm ready to see Magneto go evil again.
He's borderline there and has been for a minute, but yeah.
I just want to see Monet and Sabretooth pick up where they left off in the romance bloom.
Wait till you read Planet Size, because
it's on my stack.
Yeah, they impregnate Jamie.
Okay, wow. Jamie Braddock. Okay, I know where you're going with that. Yep, I know what that is. Speaking of turmoil, Matt, do any of your books have turmoil this week?
They do. first off in my short stack, I went back and read the Saga of Krystar, the Crystal Warrior, #1.
Nice.
I read #8 previously.
Yeah.
And I was so enthralled, I had to go back and check out the origins of said story.
Yeah.
This is, of course, going back to 1983. And the backstory apparently is that the vice president of publishing approached Jim Shooter, the editor at the time, and said, hey, how about we create our own fantasy line? And then we could, sell some toys from it as well.
What? Comic books and toys going hand in hand?
That
never happened.
Essentially, apparently, this was a vehicle to sell some toys more than anything. This was...
it was the 80s.
Plot and script was Mary Jo Duffy. Penciler is Brett Blevins. Inker is Vinnie Coletta. And, this is them setting up the world. Then I read...
Segway.
I went back in time again, and from 1992, I read Marvel's X-Force #7, prominently featuring one Rob Liefeld, doing plot and art. And the scripter is Fabian Nicieza, or however you say that name.
Nicieza. Yeah.
Nicieza.
We always struggle with that.
And that guy, too. And it took a little trip back to the early 90s. Marvel, Liefeld at the height of his powers.
Yeah, were they all pouched up?
There's not as many pouches as one would assume.
How about hooved feet?
As the years go by, the pouches grew. But the
they're like gremlins. If you get water on them, they just they tend to sprinkle everywhere.
Did you ever see the Pouch Man character he drew?
I did.
Making fun of himself.
Yeah. Bravo for him owning himself on that. But the art is as one would remember it, confusing. The writing is not as one would remember it. I read these books when I was a young lad.
Confusing?
No, it definitely was not confusing, if you get my meaning.
Yeah. Very, very simplistic, one might say.
Very.
Yeah.
All right, now. #3 on my short stack.
Oh, boy.
So this is from the 90s as well. 1995.
I can tell by that glorious cover I'm looking at.
From Eternal Press. Archangels, the Saga, #1. This is where it all started.
You really don't want to tag these creators.
This was created and written. The script and the editor is by a young man named Patrick Scott. Andy Horuelia is also the co-creator and did some pencils and inks and layouts and scripts and color assists. And then another creator on this is John Legger. And he also did the layouts and scripts and colors.
Teamwork.
Sounds like it was a...
Did it make the dream work?
Yeah, it kind of sounds like it was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing where they just passed it around and they all worked on it.
There's a... boy, oh boy, the 90s digital coloring is on full effect here. This is a story about Christian angels picking out people that they want to be... angels or something. Fighting for God.
It was unclear.
And whatnot. This apparently was a passion project of these three guys. Check out, there's a spread in the back of very 90s pictures.
I thought that was an X-Files advertisement when you first opened it.
So here we are. We got 90s, borderline glamour shots done at the mall. Some 90s lettering. And one of these guys goes on to say how this project was fraught with difficulties. Quote, however, it's only when we are faced with adversity that we truly learn who we are.
Oh, that guy's definitely a youth pastor now.
He's I'm guessing this guy's had a pretty privileged life up to this point. If making a comic book is what he uses to term fraught with adversity. So good on him for
fighting through that,
growing up soft.
I mean, the images you show, they look like a Christian like boy band. It's yeah.
I swear, I thought it was an X-Files advertisement when
it's
just seeing the one page.
Just the 90s. You got the Henley shirts, the jackets, and if you look closely, what one would call an epic mullet.
Yeah, oh, I see it now. It blended in with the background, but I see it
It's
now.
all business in the front and party in the back.
Yeah,
that's not even a good.
And
business.
that party in the back goes on and on.
Yeah, as all good parties in the back should.
Oh,
So yeah, I found this gem at the Comic-Con yesterday, and
now it lives with you forever.
could not have torn this from my hands. I was not leaving without this beauty. And in the back, embracing the 90s, my friends, embracing the 90s. Even though supplies are limited, as you can see, it says there, you can order the Platinum Edition of this comic for $25.
I wonder what that's worth in inflation.
You could order the T-shirt
Worth half that much.
$18.95.
If you're lucky.
Got posters for only $5.95.
I'm sure some people have some Archangels posters somewhere.
And the Archangel's cap for $16.95.
And if they don't have them, they're all in a warehouse somewhere.
Worry not. This isn't a cheap polyester cap. It's a stylish onyx black 90s cap with a silver Archangel's the Saga title embroidered on the front. All our caps are adjustable.
Oh.
And made of 100% brushed cotton twill.
Oh, see, I couldn't buy them. I only wear fitted caps.
So those are made to last. You can bequeath them to the children you like the most.
There's got to be at least one Archangel super fan out there who just has an entire room dedicated to this. There's got to be one. Like, I'm going to be sad.
If you are one of our listeners and you are an Archangel's super fan, please send us a picture of the.
No, we want to have you on the show.
I mean, it is a saga. It says right on the front.
It says so right on the cover. That's how we know.
Oh, I regret that we didn't let Matt go last on this one.
Yeah, follow that.
Yeah, I can't. There's nothing I have to offer that's going to live up to the legend that was that you just laid out.
To the legend that was that.
To the legend that was that. That words, like they escape me. I've lost all grasp of my vernacular.
That there's impact, friend. Impact.
So I did get a chance to read a few books this week. A book that I really enjoyed, and after this series is over, I'm probably just going to do a deep dive on it as like my book of the week, just the entire thing. But it's Strange Academy, number 11. Scotty Young, Humberto Ramos, Edgar Delgado. This one's entitled "Who Shattered Toth." And it's this ice character who is
who shat or talk?
Shattered.
Oh.
Shattered.
Oh.
Toth is a crystalline figure who comes from Weird World. And his.
Does he come from Krystar?
No. I wonder if there's a connection there, though. There might be. His mom is the queen.
I smell lawsuit.
His mom is the queen. And his dad is a man thing who is not man thing somehow. I don't know. I don't know the history of it. Anyway, he was up late studying one night and went to walk back to his dorm room and was shattered. And in the shattering, somebody stole his heart shard. And so they have to figure out how to get it back and put him back together. There's a leather jacket involved. That's really all I'm going to tell you. I know it's a hard bridge to reach there, but it's true.
I'm having a hard time understanding words you're saying today.
It's weird. No, it's weird and it's fun.
Because I thought you said heart shart.
Heart shard.
Heart shard.
I figured out that's what it was, but at first I thought that's what you said. And I thought,
well, no, the heart shard that's a different thing. That's
Crystal Warrior.
Crystal, yeah. I feel like there's a lawsuit incoming.
But I mean, this is Scotty Young at his best, man. Writing youthful stories that are fun. They're out.
I've heard
there.
nothing but good stuff about that book.
It's so much fun. I love it. I can't wait to see where they're going with it. Like if we're talking about shows that Marvel could do to bring in like a young audience and stuff like that, you could easily do this and it would be a good time. And
but do comic companies care about young audiences?
I mean, I think so. It depends. I mean, most of they do put out shows that I think are youthful that kids can watch. But I don't know that we think about that because we can think of like the big blockbuster things. But I don't know if they want to like that could easily be CWized if that makes sense. And so
it could go on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I mean, jumping over to the distinguished competition.
Is that what DC stands for?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. You've got the House of Ideas and you've got the distinguished competition. It's the thing. So this latest kind of run on Wonder Woman, I haven't really dug it as much. It's been kind of weird. It ended really strongly though, and it kind of grabbed me at the end. You know, Wonder Woman's my girl at DC, so I'm always going to be on that book. But it's written by an all-star team. I mean, you've got Will Conrad and Becky Cloonan who are writing it. Travis Moore on the art, colors by Tamara Bonvillain, and Pat Brousseau doing the letters. Basically, Wonder Woman. So here's the 30,000 foot pitch on this. The Valkyries got pissed off and stopped carrying off the dead to Valhalla, and she has to figure out why and what happened, because she kind of, she's been hooking up with this Viking, and she needs him back for a little bit, and so she has to go on a little journey with a squirrel creature thing to find out what she needs to do to get the people back to Valhalla. Her and Thor have a drinking match. And that's fun. There's lots of good and lots of booze.
Now you're talking about the second book that's going to get sued.
Yeah. Well, this is the other Thor. This is the more Viking-ish type Thor. But no, it's a good time. They ended
Not
it.
Space Thor?
Not Space Thor. Nope. Just straight up dude with a beard and a hammer. And Diana crushes his hammer because fuck that guy. He was being an asshole. No, so go check this out.
I mean, it's Thor. I mean, that's what he's supposed to be.
This is extra asshole Thor. They ended on a really strong note. She does, it's the last of this run, so she saves the day, what have you.
Thor drinks and kills things. That's what Thor does.
It's true, not to be confused with that guy from Game of Thrones who drinks and knows things.
That's right.
Also, quite the fellow. I'm a big fan. I have that on my wall at home. I drink and I know things. It's a good moniker. And then Craig, based on your recommendation and the fact that you were kind enough to let me borrow this, I read The Adventures of Parker Reef: The Way Back Home. Again, I don't know.
Did you color?
I did not color. No, I saved that for you. Chris Campana, he has found a way to channel pain into art, and at the end of the day. There are lots of reasons to make art. You can do it because you're joyful. You can do it because you just want to pass the time, because you like it and everything. This has got to be cathartic for him on some level, I suppose, to be able to channel that. And I really appreciate the fact that he did it, because there's besides the fact that it's a fun adventure, it brings another layer of context to the meaning of these things that we hold in our hands and we read every week. So,
how about that ending? Did it rip your heart out?
It did. Like you. I mean, yeah. No, I mean, like I read it, and it hits on all levels. And because that there is a tether to reality to this, it's not just you can read things by people that are sad stories and they're fictional, and they'll make you messed up. You'll have a moment. This compounds that exponentially because it's based on reality. It's these emotions channeled into lines.
Sadly, some of the best art comes from pain.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I wish Chris had no reason to make this book. I really do. But I want to thank him if by chance he hears the show for sharing it with us, because it was well worth the read, and I appreciated it in ways that I can't say.
I'm handing it to Matt right now to read because he loves Fifi stories.
Man,
yeah,
just some.
Did you ever read the first one, Matt? No.
No.
Okay. I didn't figure.
And then, while we're wrapping up Short Stacks, before we get too far away, I want to give a shout out and a congratulations to our friends Dalton and Wells.
Yeah.
Their Kickstarter, we had them on a few weeks ago to talk about Mechaton. Their Kickstarter was fully funded, so the book is getting made. They are actually over. They surpassed their goal.
Actually.
Nice.
It was really cool.
About 3 days before the end, it didn't look like they were going to make it.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, they crushed it by like $2,000.
Yeah,
Nice.
they went above and beyond. So, and I think there's still maybe there's still time to sign up for it. I don't know if there is or not.
Usually, you can sign up for a while. I
yeah.
know that they. I paid for mine yesterday because they took it out of my account yesterday, so I know that they're at least at that point. But usually, and knowing Dalton and Wells, they will be running the convention circuit with these books once they have them as well. So.
It's going to be fun. I can't wait to. I hope they're able to get the second issue made now. Yeah. That's the thing, is you got to keep going with it.
I cannot wait to read about ketchup cans.
Dude, I cannot wait to see this mech hot dog stand. It's gonna be, dude. It's what I love about these guys, right? Like, we're talking about Chris Campana, who channels his pain, his grief into art. These guys channel like youthful exuberance and just the ridiculousness of the medium into a fun time. And that is also amazing to me.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know Dalton especially, he is absolutely all of those things.
Yeah.
Youthful exuberance that loves the medium of comic
he's like a little
books.
fucking cherub of happy.
Yeah.
With his little rosy
He needs
cheeks
to
and
regrow
shit.
his mustache.
He looks 12. he looks like I need my ginger bear back. So it makes it better. But no, it's such good dudes, and and
Congrats,
congratulations.
and if you guys
the whole
supported
creative
them,
team.
thank you.
Yeah, 100%. I cannot. I'm gonna make the soup recipe that I got as part of the Kickstarter as soon as I get it.
Yeah, I up mine to the soup recipe one as well.
We're gonna
Lentil bean soup. Wells's family's
much coveted.
Oh, I see.
Much coveted family recipe.
Yeah.
So, well, all right. Let's talk about a comic, shall we?
I suppose. I mean, it's kind of why we're here.
I mean, we gather here today, not for a marriage. So unless
To
you, I
celebrate
mean, I'm
this
a
thing we call
officiant.
life.
If you guys want to just make it official, we can. But no, we're not doing weddings today. We're talking about comics. Before we do so, I just want to say, hey, we're talking about a book that came out this past week, Wednesday. It's fresh off the shelf. It has existed in the world for less than 7 days at this point. We don't want to ruin anybody's reading experience. We all read these things in some sense as entertainment and escapism. So if you haven't read this book and it's on your to-do list and you don't want it spoiled for you, go read it. Just real quick, hit the pause button. Go read it. Come back and check it out. And listen to us say really, really fun and smart things about the wonderful book that is Static Season 1, Number 1, from DC Comics, but really from Milestone Comics, in a roundabout way. That's Milestone is back. It returned. It says so right on the cover of the book. This is written by Vita Ayala with pencils, I guess pencils, done by Crisscross, and inks and colors done by Nicholas Draper Ivey. Is
that the Crisscross?
Well, Crisscross was a group, right?
I thought there was a dude that was Crisscross.
Early '90s hip hop is.
No.
No.
Not
Yeah, well, it was the group because those are the kids that wore their clothes on backwards. You remember those guys?
No.
Yeah.
Hey, remember Vanilla Ice?
I do remember.
Hey, Milli Vanilli. We want to. Yeah, well, kind of the same time. But
Girl, you know it's true.
what did you guys think about this book?
I liked it. I really enjoyed the art, which at first it wasn't really grabbing me, but by the end, when they got to the fights, that I really enjoyed the art specifically. The layouts during the fight sequence were pretty amazing, in my opinion. Had kind of a graffiti feel to it, which, some of the better artists that are out right now, in my opinion, outside of the comic book world, are kind of graffiti artists anyways. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, the art was really good. The writing was fine. I'm not the audience for it.
Yeah.
And any story about kids at school, womp womp.
Yeah.
I'm immediately taken out of a kids at school story.
And I kind of feel the same, but I'm going to probably give it a second issue to see. I know we're not to that point in our conversation yet.
That's
but,
fine.
Yeah, I did really enjoy the book, though. So, I mean, it's well written, it's well drawn. I really enjoyed the art.
Yeah.
There's nothing thematically wrong with the book.
I love the book. I thought it was super fun. The book has its roots in classic superhero origin stories. There's very much some Peter Parker in here as he gets his powers and tries to figure them out and navigate, like you said, high school. But also because I like the legacy of this book. I've got a bunch of the old Milestone stuff at home.
Well, I do want to say before you go into that if you're stuck on the old Static, this is a new origin.
Yeah.
I think it's the same character, but it's a new origins for him and all of that. So you don't have to have any of your old luggage coming with you to.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's still got the same feel. Like it's got that, like you said, it kind of feels like it's got the street vibe. Like this is.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is if you're worried that you don't know who this character is, they give you everything you need to know.
Right.
Because it's a new origin. It's a new, essentially a new character with the same name, but it's the same character, if that makes sense.
It's a great kickoff point. It's done by, I told you who the creative team was. The fact that now none of the original creators the originators of these characters are alive again, or are alive anymore. It's terribly sad, but I love to see their legacy live on, and I think that's one of the benefits of doing these corporate-owned entities is your creations. If this you choose the way to look at it, do live past you. Dwayne McDuffie was a brilliant person, and I love the legacy that he left behind. John Paul Leon just passed away. Robert Washington III was also he played a big hand in this, and those are the guys who launched Milestone. They made this book originally. They're the ones who set up the legacy of this character, and so especially after John Paul Leon died like a month ago. Like it hasn't been long at all. It's fresh, and the dude was brilliant. So to see this come back now, it's timely.
Well, it's interesting that it happens because it's not like they just threw this together in recognition of that. This was something that was already happening. Yeah. Just the time.
It's one of those things that it works out in kind of a wonderful but morbid way, I think. So what is the story? Let's talk about that. Let's get into it for a second. So the story, as I said, it kind of has this, this young high school superhero Peter Parker-esque vibe. I mean, I think it uses a lot of the framework that Stan and Steve Ditko and all of them set up because it's a classic framework. It works. So you've got this young man. He's a young African American man who is fresh into his new power set. He hasn't had them very long. He doesn't know really what's going on and how to use them. If you want to see the full story of how he comes to be in possession of these just otherworldly electric static powers, check out Milestone Returns Infinite Edition number 0. You can find it most comic shops. You can get it on Comixology. It'll kind of walk you through. But this kid is, he's young. He's a teenager. He even without powers, it's a confusing time. He's kind of angry. Hormones and all that are raging. Dealing with bullies at school it's a struggle for anybody, right? But Virgil he's not your average boy anymore. Now he's got these electric powers, and to kind of bring it into the 21st century or into the modern era now, how these powers were bestowed on him. He and these other students were at a protest. They were protesting police brutality. And much like happened in the real world, as we saw not too long ago last year, especially after the murder of George Floyd, where protests swept the nation, these young people, they took to the streets to protest, and in many ways they did it nonviolently. Now there were some incidents obviously where things happened, but even here in Little Rock, I had friends who were at the Capitol who were literally sitting down. They were sitting down, they were with their arms locked, and they were chanting, and they were gassed. The police used tear gas because they were, committing the insane crime, the obviously dangerous crime of sitting down and breaking a curfew. And that's basically what happened here. Is these kids were gassed, except this wasn't just tear gas. This was not just your disperse and cease and desist and go home gas. This gas was made by this private corporation, and it had never been tested. And they weren't really sure what it was supposed to use for, but what it did, it somehow morphed these characters. It changed their physiology, sometimes physically. It gave them all sorts of just really otherworldly. That made them superhumans. It made them, not unlike mutants or gods or what have you. These characters that would fit well into a world like DC. And the book kind of gives you the background on this through this radio show of another young kid that we don't see a lot of through the story. But he kind of lays this all out, and then it jumps back to Virgil. Like I said, this is not the first time that Virgil has dealt with these powers. He's had one other interaction using them. School bully kind of decided this guy, hot-headed guy, I think he calls himself like Hot Streak or something like that, decided he was going to kind of have his, it was his way or the highway for some of these students, and was just being a jackass. Well, Virgil stepped in and summarily whipped homeboy's ass, which creates the problem, right? It creates your conflict in the story, because as Virgil's trying to figure things out and trying to figure out school and the dynamics of just really being a teenager with these new powers and keeping the power set quiet, you know, remembering how life, quote unquote, was before what they're calling the Big Bang, the gassing, and how it's changed afterwards, and you know, dealing with these dynamic and life altering moments that he's witnessed and he's been through. He's now faced with literally having an arch nemesis, like having a superpowered villain who wants to come in and just be kind of shitty. Obviously, and I should say Hot Streak or whatever he's called, his powers are fire based. He was also part of these guys that were gassed, and so he can ignite things. He's almost like a little Human Torch, or if you're a fan of Dragon Ball Z, if you go back, he very much looks like Goku when he's flamed up, you know, Human Torchy. And over all of these things is the history of what Milestone was, right? Milestone were these African American black created characters for black kids, utilizing black culture and bringing them to the forefront of what was predominantly a white created, white owned, and white edited world. And so you see the lens of that, you see the layer of that laid over throughout the whole story. You can imagine there's this one case where, like at the very end of the story, before the big fight kicks off, where Virgil and Static and his family walk outside and they see Hot Streak standing on their lawn on fire. You can imagine, with the history of the Ku Klux Klan and the terrorism that black families faced, the imagery of walking out to your lawn and seeing something burning on your lawn meant to instill fear, what that means for this comic and what the message is that they're conveying there. It just truly, to me, was an incredibly like hair-raising moment. I got goosebumps when that happened, because you just like we're from the South, we know what that is. We like, and I say that as a white person. I don't know the fear of that. I know the terrorism and the fear that it instills in my friends and my family. And so just that moment was the kicking off point. Virgil had enough, and he does the superhero thing. Like he's going to get them, like his plan is to get Hot Streak away from his family, away from his house, away from their property. The destruction of property by fire and the interruption of things like intergenerational wealth and of the black communities is there's a whole other history there, which, you know, is being banned right now in a lot of states that they don't want to talk about. Anyway, not gonna let me digress back to the story. They fight it out. Virgil has to figure out how to use this electricity, how to use his newfound power and his knowledge. He's a young, almost an engineer guy. Like he's a smart kid, and he's been through these, kind of science camps, and he's gonna use the electricity to figure out how to extinguish fire. And that's where they get to. As any good hero story, first issue, just when you think he's got it licked, you think he's about to walk away, the tables turn on him, and something horrific happens. You'll have to see what that is. It's going to have a major impact on an already complicated kid, an already hurt family. It's the mechanics of a really great superhero origin story, layered with very real world cultural aspects, like a trauma, the hip hop vibe, the art in this, like you guys already mentioned, it does have that street feel. And I'm like gonna real quick just give my 30,000 foot view of it. I love this book. Like I'm gonna leave a note for Tony today to put me on this. I want to see more. It's got this mix of street vibe, something you might see. Of course, I don't want to think of a name and I can't. But it also uses these manga perspectives that I think a lot of these new creators, new younger guys are working with, and we're seeing. You see a lot of it in the current Batman run with the designs of the characters, but just in general, like I said, when Matchboy, whatever his name is, ignites, he looks like Goku. Like he looks like he's fresh out of a Dragon Ball Z comic. The use of texture, I think most of it's probably digital, but it's still it's the perspective, the use of light in this is incredible. The use of what I call digital zipatone, the little dots and stuff in the back that give it kind of this old school comic book 4-color feel. but in a very modern way, in a very almost novel way. It hasn't been done like this for too long. I'm down, man. Like this is good comics for me. I can't wait to see where they go with this. So
you skipped over the most unrealistic scene in the whole book.
oh, what's that?
The family dinner when the parents are reasonable with a teenage kid that's got the powers.
Right.
No, so for the same reasons Matt said, I'm not real interested in another teenage superhero book. But then, that was my first take on it. And then as I thought about it, prepping for the show this morning, I thought, well, that's kind of not a great take because I did love Invincible and it started as a teen superhero book. Spider-Man's one of my favorite characters. So that's why I'm going to give it at least the next issue and see where it goes from there. Everything about the book is solid. There's I saw no flaws in the book at all.
It's one of those things. It's kind of like with genre books in particular. 5 years ago, I would have rather rubbed my arm with sandpaper than have read another vampire story because they were just everywhere and they were super saturated in the market.
Matt still has that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then you get me on a book like Philadelphia, which is a new take. They're doing something different with just the idea and the history of vampires and what they could mean as a metaphor for the world we live in. And then all of a sudden it becomes something, not necessarily something new. It's not something that we haven't seen before, but it's like looking through a different lens on it. And I think that's really cool. Now, teen books, I don't give a flying fuck about the current Teen Titans run right now. To be fair, I haven't given it much a chance, but it just seems like another, like, oh yeah, we're teens and we have superpowers and look at
we're
us.
Teens
yada, yada.
and we're Titans.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, like the title?
I've heard really good things about the Teen
it could
Titans
be excellent.
book. I haven't read it.
That's why I wanted to do the caveat. I haven't read it, but you get me a book like Young Avengers or Champions, where it's these young
what
kids.
He's saying is he doesn't give a fuck about
Here we
DC,
go. Avengers.
teen books,
Maybe.
but Marvel teen books he's all in for.
Not necessarily, because I enjoyed Young Justice. So you give me a book like Young Justice, which is that same kind of dynamic and that same trope, and it's using the same mechanics.
I think what
does
it is
cool.
is that all of us kind of, without speaking for you guys, but it's kind of like, I want to see adult stories. I want to see that. Not that there shouldn't be teen books.
Yeah,
that just doesn't mean it's for me. But then it's like, yeah, but I read this one and it's really good.
Right.
So it does happen where it can cross over into both.
But so kind of what you were saying though with Invincible and stuff like that. It's when Invincible came out, there were there's a dozen other teen gets superpowers and can figure out how to use them stories. But there's something about these stories, these particular ones that just hit. There's something about them that just either it's in the moment or it's the world around us in real life that we're trying to walk away from. Or they're just it's the writers and the artists who understand the mechanics of these stories. And look, there's not much of a difference between an engine in a Corvette and an engine in that works really great, and an engine in a Corvette that is kind of janky. Like lemon laws exist for a reason, right? Like you can.
I wonder where he was going with that. Matt and I both sat straight up as he started to go.
You can have the same motor that was put together in the same way. One is going to run for 30 years. The other one's going to last 50,000 miles and clank out. And they were put together in the same factory, and they were done using the same blueprints. One is going to sing, man. It just runs. The other one, it fizzles. Like there's and who can explain why? It just something about them doesn't work out. And I think that's the same thing with these kind of books, especially in genre stuff. And we're dealing with 80-year-old tropes, 80-year-old story patterns, even older than that. I say that because of comics, but there's something about them when they work well. God, it feels good. It just feels really, really good.
I agree.
So Matt, you're just like, it's just again not you don't do teen
I'm not
books.
the audience for this.
You don't do teen books.
Yeah.
But talk about the art for a minute, man. Like, 'cause that's one thing I think you did enjoy.
Yeah, I mean the art's. I mean, there's no knocking the quality of the book. I mean, there's nothing to. Yeah, the quality's solid. I mean, it's a solid book. It's just not for me.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel that. So,
Yeah.
Craig, you said you're giving it a second chance. I'm
I'm definitely going to give it at least another issue. I'm not going to put it on my pull list just yet, but
right.
I said the same thing about Robin. I wasn't interested in it till I read the first 2 issues. So, sometimes a couple issues will sell you on it. So.
Now, Craig, you said something a while ago, and you mentioned that there are 2 kind of, they're not really double page spreads, but they're kind of double page spreads in this. It's before the Big Bang and after the Big Bang. They both show the same kind of scene: parents sitting down at dinner before the world changed and after the world changed. If you don't understand how important color can be to these type of stories, this is a textbook example of what color can do just for the mood. Immediately, you look at the one page and the light coming through the window, the brightness of their clothes, the way
one
that
was at lunch and one was at dinner.
Well, true. Look, obviously,
I'm messing
that time, but the hues on these 2 pages, the brightness of them, the way that they grab your eye and take you to a certain place, the mood that they set.
I've heard them called, table talk scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And in this book, it's literally table talk scenes, but it's where you get the family together and kind of discuss the narrative.
Right.
And every good story has to have them at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the sit down and talk and what's going on scene. This one actually has a couple, like you said, it has it before and after. And obviously, like you said, before the event happens, everything's kind of light and happy. Yeah. And then when it happens, you have this kind of darker tones,
it shows you what these characters, Static in this case, Peter Parker, Invincible, it shows you what they're fighting for. They're not just fighting to fight.
Ryan Otley's never colored a dark page in his life. They're always bright colored. But I get your point.
Yeah, no, it's like those moments. Well, I was speaking more of the family dynamic of it. It sets up the importance, what these kids are fighting for. It's not just to save the world. They have a personal stake in this, and I think that humanizes it so much.
What's great is you've got a kid that's a superhero that his parents know. I mean, he's not a superhero yet. Obviously, he's heading that direction, but he's super powered. His parents know, and they're immediately supportive. Yeah. And not, I mean, they're wondering what to do. Can we get you counseling? You should go learn to fight. But they're also supportive of him and not just like throwing his ass out on the street, which is a thing that happens. Yeah. I mean, go read the X-Men.
It's supportive families who want to. Again, they just want to give him space. They want to give him space to grow, but they also don't want to lose him. And that raises the stakes in these kind of stories from a narrative standpoint. So I'm about it. So go check these out. And dude, if you get the chance, I don't know if Comixology has them. I don't know. Maybe you have to go. You can go join Matt and dig through the dollar books.
You can definitely find the originals and dollar books.
And read the original Milestone stuff. It's really, really great stuff. And like Dennis Cowan writes a small, not really an essay, but just a small letter in the back of this, talking about the importance of these characters, talking about the legacy left behind by Dwayne McDuffie and all the rest of the Milestone crew and the people who are no longer here, John Paul Leon, Richardson, all of them. It's a very moving letter, and it's a great testament to what this book means to them specifically. So I really appreciated that. So all in all, I'm happy with it. Go check it out if you're so inclined. If it sounds like something you dig,
for sure.
Now I want to jump over to Matt because Matt didn't enjoy this one as much, but I want him to tell me about something that he really enjoyed, that he absolutely dug, because I just want to hear his deep and sultry voice, really.
So I was online looking for old comics, and I found a OGN from Slave Labor Graphics, home of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, most famously. This OGN was released in the early 90s, I believe. The finding the print date on this has been hard, so I'm not totally sure. No, that's not true. It's early 2000s, excuse me.
Okay.
This is, as far as I can tell, Charles Soule's first published comic work.
Yeah. Okay.
I did some research. I can't find anything that shows it was published earlier than this. So he did the writing, and as far as I can tell, did the lettering as well. And then the art is by one Alan Gladfelter. This is a black, and there's no color in this book, but there's zipatone, there's grays. And it is a story. The way I would summarize this, for those of you that are familiar with Frank Miller's Sin City, this is some kind of like if Marv was an ex-luchador wrestler, is the way I would.
Nice.
That's my quick and dirty, easy way to describe this story. That's the main character reminds me very much of Marv from Sin City, just in his physical presence and his toughness, not so much in his outlook on life or what he does, but it is a story of an ex-luchador who is he's in hard times. He's living in the States. He has moved from Mexico. He's living in the States. He's eking out a living, wrestling local matches, pretty much just putting people over. For those of you that are familiar with the vernacular, letting himself get beat as a big man, letting other people beat him to make them look stronger. And he is approached by a woman that is having trouble with a local crime syndicate, begging for his help. And he finally decides to help her out because she says she can give him $300. And once he goes down that path, he is reinvigorated by his suddenly feeling important again and feeling of accomplishment. If anybody is familiar with the story of Seabiscuit, for example, Seabiscuit, the horse was, his job was to lose. His job was to lose to make other horses feel stronger, so they would end up being better racers. And he finally started winning races, and it invigorated the horse. Reminded me of that. This guy's been losing. He starts winning, and he's reinvigorated. So it's a fun story. The art's really good. It's easy to read. It's a one, beginning to end, one quick OGN. Unusual. There's not a lot of stories out there like this one, so I appreciated that. And something that Charles Soule did really well in this is the writing of a native Mexican speaking English. You know how, the beats of, he nailed that. There's no, it's all English, but the way he writes, you can hear it clear as day as that.
Right. Kind of broken.
Yeah. That
Hispanic
it's like this stunted way that they say each word.
Right.
Well, their language is so fast that they have to slow down to speak
and that's the way
English
it feels. He nails that so well. I really got to give him props for that.
That's the kind of story that Charles Soule really excels at, in my opinion. First of all, his own stuff, but second of all, kind of we talked about it the other day with the Bounty Hunter book, but the kind of silent, strong guy that
but is begrudgingly the good guy.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't necessarily want to be, but he turns out to be. Craig, please note that on Sunday the 20th, that Matt talked about a feel-good story.
Yeah.
A Fifi story, if you will. Not only one, but two. He brought up Seabiscuit.
Right?
I was not expecting Seabiscuit from one Mr. Matt Trogdon. Father's Day is getting to our boy.
Right? I have yet in my life watched the Seabiscuit movie.
That is a movie that I rented when it came out because I could find nothing else on the shelf back when you had to do that.
Yeah.
And I thought, it was amazing.
Yeah,
and it's a true story.
About it, yeah.
It's the only Tobey Maguire movie that I unabashedly recommend.
What, Spider-Man 2? 3? Which
I
one
like
was a good one?
I like the Spider-Man 1 and 2, but
That's
even though Tobey Maguire was in it.
Okay, in spite of.
He recommends them because they're Spider-Man and they're good Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's facts. No, Seabiscuit was great. So one of the benefits of being together again at the same table in person and not doing this over Skype is physically hand me the book, which Matt just did. Look, if you give me a book that's filled with zipatone, I'm usually a happy camper, and the way that they use zipatone in that book is phenomenal. Just a cursory glance over the pages. I think it adds so much texture, so much depth to what is a black and white book. As far as giving it kind of a 3-dimensional feel, I love Zipatone as like I've got several commissions at home where the artist used it, and it just adds so much to the story. So that's kind of those pages are phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's a great looking.
Well,
book.
and one thing for people that aren't aware, slave labor is still around, but back in the 2000s, early 2000s, they were kind of that version of Fantagraphics.
Yeah, okay.
They were kind of where you went to get your independent, creator-owned OGNs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we read something from slave labor not too long ago, I want to say.
Well, Craig talked about Squee.
Maybe that's what
Per
it
my
was.
recommendation.
Well, that and our buddy Dusty Higgins and Van Jensen, they did
Pinocchio
Vampire Slayer
Okay.
was a slave labor book.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, as well as their Zombie Knights of the Round Table or whatever it was. Yeah, both good books that you should pick up and read. But
100. Yeah. Well, Craig, jumping over to you, brother. What did you read this week that you want to talk about?
Well, those of you that know me know that I'm into Viking culture stuff. Like, I have this fascination for it. And a little while back, Neil Gaiman wrote a novel for Norse mythology, which I don't know. I never read it, but I believe he probably just kind of took it and put all the different stories and put them in one cohesive story, would be in my imagination. But when I saw this comic on the shelf, I actually hadn't signed up for it, but I went ahead and bought it. And it's Norse mythology. The first story is called The Mead of Poets, and it's written by Neil Gaiman and P. Craig Russell, and art by Matt Horick, and colors by Laverne Kadzierski. Is
Why
that
not?
what we're going to go with?
Yeah.
And letters by Galen Showman. So this is the story of how poetry and sagas came into the Norse mythology. And so what happens is it starts with the Aesir and the Vanir are in a war, and they realize that neither one of us can win, we're pretty equally matched. So in Viking tradition, when they have a peace offering, they have a vat full of water and they all spit in it. And the combining of their spit symbolizes their unity. Well, after they have their traditional after party of peace, Frey and Freya decide to make a demigod out of this bucket of spit. And this demigod, he is the kind of the father of poetry and knowledge. And he immediately meets Odin until, he has to answer some questions to prove his demigod worthiness. And he decides to go out into the world, to the 9 different, worlds that they have in Norse mythology. And his first stop, because he wants to expand his knowledge, his first stop is to see the dwarves. Well, these 2 brother dwarves immediately betray him wanting his knowledge. They hang him over a pot of mead and slit his throat and drain his blood into the boiling mead so that they can use that to gain his knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, they become so smart that they decide to start betraying people that they owe debts to, including a couple of giants. They take the husband or the male giant out into the water, and because he weighs so much, he causes the boat to hit rocks, and he falls off the boat. He can't swim. He drowns. Well, then he goes back. They go back, and the giant's wife is like, "What did you do to my husband?" And they're like, well, come outside. You can see him outside. They get outside, and the other one pushes a rock on her head and kills her. Well, what they don't foresee is that these giant's son comes and gets his reckoning. And he does so by tying them up and taking them out into the water and putting them on rocks in the ocean and telling them they're going to drown when high tide comes in. Well, their only bargaining chip is this mead that grants us intelligence and ability to create poetry. Well, so the giant accepts. He steals the mead, takes the mead, and takes it back. Well, then the dwarfs start whining about how they were robbed by this giant. Well, Odin's ravens hear that and report back to Odin. Well, you can understand Odin is pretty upset that now the giants have the knowledge of the gods, and so he's goes to Giant Land
TM.
and starts wreaking havoc.
Clever name.
Yeah, it's Jotland, I think is how you say it.
Yeah. Is it Jotunheim?
Yeah, Jotunheim.
Jotunheim.
Yeah. So, he goes there and starts wreaking havoc, and that's kind of where there's some stuff. He convinces a bunch of slaves to kill each other with the sickles that he sharpens for them. Then he makes a deal with the giant's brother that he'll help him with his harvest if he'll get him the mead. And that's where it ends. Part 2 will be an issue 2. Really interesting, really violent, really good. You can see where Viking culture really, you know, got its influence, of course, from their gods and their mythology, as all cultures do. But really a fun read. And,
Well, especially their warrior poets. So that's always something I love about, like, you get into Norse mythology, you get into some of these old, even back into the Celtic era, like they had warrior poets. Like their warriors weren't just Greek mythology does the same thing. Their warriors weren't just these buffoons that went out with sticks and sharp knives and stabbed people.
They didn't have written language. The Vikings, so everything was told
in
sagas.
Yeah, the bard is the one who walked around and told these grandiose tales.
So all of it was passed down through sagas that weren't written for another. Well, probably till they invaded England and started to learn written language is probably when it started getting written down.
The Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah. Well, whenever the Holy Roman Empire started documenting Vikings, but that's the thing, something that's frustrating about Viking history is a lot of it's convoluted with what their enemies said about them.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's part of the fascination with it. Is so much
you don't know where the reality is and where the
propaganda begins.
History is told through the eyes of the victor. So.
A lot of times it's told. I mean, that's a saying that is said a lot, but I think a lot of times the losers. Because if you think about it, in this specific case, the Vikings beat the English so bad that they became the kings and queens of France and England.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Even to this day, they're all delineated from Vikings, but it was written down by the English bards and
the
English
villainization
monks that actually wrote the history.
Yeah, the villainization and the brutality is, that's the stuff that it's hard to tell the difference between history and propaganda. That's so fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, in the story of how the Vikings expand, I mean, they lived in a beautiful part of the world, but as far as farming goes, it's rock and hills. Yep. They had to expand in order to continue to grow as a society. And they were a warrior race, so their only way, was to go and conquer. So, they'd spent hundreds of years before they ever did that, conquering each other repeatedly.
Yeah.
So, but very interesting story. I can't wait to read how Odin destroys these giants. Just good stuff. It's well worth the read.
Neil Gaiman story aside, I'll take any chance I get to look at P. Craig Russell.
Yeah,
his art is phenomenal, and it always has been. He hasn't really.
He doesn't actually do the art in this.
Does he not?
Yeah, he's just writing it. Matt Horick does the art in it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it says story and words by Neil Gaiman, and then it's story, words, and layouts by P. Craig Russell.
So he did the layouts. Okay.
Yeah, probably in the script.
Yeah, loose pencils.
Yeah.
Those two have worked together well, though. So if you. Craig,
script and layouts.
Yeah, Craig, I know you've read it, but they teamed up together. They did Fables and Reflections at the volume of Sandman, and their team up on that was pretty amazing. So I've always he did a Oscar Wilde book as well that I've read that was really, really good. Just the way that he's got a very thin line, and again, I don't know how much of it plays in this one since he just did the layouts, but very, very thin line, very, very deep pages. Like he puts a lot in there.
Well, so one of the things, not to jump from that subject, but one of the things that got me on getting this book was the fact, I think we all kind of know the basics of Norse mythology. We know Odin, we know Freya, we know Thor, we know the big names, but I don't know all the deep stories, like how did poetry begin in Norse mythology? Like you do, like with Greek and Roman culture, we're kind of more ingrained in that. We're kind of taught more of that as we grow up. But I'm interested just to see these stories and how they play out and add them to my knowledge of Norse mythology.
Very cool. Well, you'll have to let me know how to. I'm not on that series. You'll have to let me know how.
Yeah, I'm not either. I grabbed it off the wall, but I will be adding it to my list.
Nice. Well, I read something this week that was kind of fun and kind of fits in.
Pulls out a novel over here.
Read the phone book.
Good thing we were both short, Matt.
It is a novel. It's a graphic novel, and it kind of fits into the same theme as Static does with our original books, as in the creators, the originator is no longer with us. Just like Jean Paul Leon, it wasn't that long ago, a few months out, that Richard Sala passed away. So when I visited our local comic book haberdashery and I saw this sitting on the shelf, I had to bring it home with me because it's
haberdashery.
It's a haberdashery. I like that word. It's a fun word. I saw it's what I guess is going to be his last published work, or at least the last work that he knew was going to be published. And it's called Poison Flowers and Pandemonium. It's from Fantagraphic Books. It is it's a fun book. If you know Richard Sala, it's got everything that you know and love about him. This particular book has 3 stories. It's got the ending to, I think it was his 2019 work that he came out with that has the Cardinal. It wraps up that series, and it gives you 2 other stories, one of which is kind of this pulpy spy-esque type story where you've got a femme fatale who's doing her own thing. But the story I was going to tell you guys about, it's kind of the meat of the book. It takes place right in the center of the 3 stories. And this one's called Cave Girls of the Lost World. I have no idea.
I've seen that movie.
Touche. It probably was loosely based on this. If you know Richard Sala's work, his work is very sensual. It's very sexy. So essentially the way the book laid out, the book is bookended, or the story is bookended, so to speak, by this young boy. And he finds he's walking on the beach and he finds a bottle with papers rolled up inside it. And he takes it to his mom and this guy that they're hanging out with. And he's like, hey, look, I found this thing, and let's open it up. And when they open it up, it's the story. It's the story of the Cave Girls of the Lost World. And so essentially there was a young sports team, a young women's sports team who were flying and their plane mysteriously disappeared, and who knows what happened to them. All athletic, obviously all gorgeous. And what happened in real life, or not in real life, in the story as it were, is they all ended up on this island.
This isn't jungle fantasy?
It's not jungle fantasy.
I'm skeptical.
It's not. It's not that.
Oh, okay.
It's got some of the same tropes. It's got some of the same vibes, but it's not. Essentially,
Vibes?
what happens is these girls end up on this island, but this island is, the story, the world that the boy lives in is our world, so to speak. It's it's a comic translation of our world, and so the world that these girls live in is supposed to be that as well. But the island that they land on is something akin to what is the place in Antarctica that you mentioned it earlier? The X-Men always visit to the Savage Land. Something akin to the Savage Land. There are dinosaurs.
I always forget that the Savage Land's in.
I always want to say the Phantom Zone, and that's DC. That's I don't know why. I always get those things as I'm talking about them convoluted. But there's dinosaurs, and there's Cro-Magnon men, and there's all these scary things. There are weird vampire monk creatures that hide in the bushes, and so the story, as they're laying it out, it's how all these girls all survive. There's about 30 of them. And they all have to, their clothes are in tattered. They're wearing loincloths. As Richard Sala draws them, most of them have a boob, if not both boobs, hanging out. But it's not porn. It's not these are something that's the way that his line is drawn. Richard Sala got his start. You know him from Raw, and you know him from Cracked. All those old, like Matt calls them headshot books. And then he went on to do Fantagraphics work. But he has this very, I used the phrase earlier, youthful exuberance to his cartooning, And even though the girls are mostly nude from the waist up throughout the story, it's sensual. They're gorgeous. These are busty, curvy young women. But it's almost the sexuality is almost an afterthought. The sensuality is put in.
Probably
there.
has something to do with the reader on that.
No. I don't think so. I look at the art, and it's like this is something that if you were a young boy, obviously you would see this and you would have thoughts and stuff. But it's meant to make you have those thoughts. But you have to do that work. The story doesn't do the work for you. It doesn't sexualize these women as much as just says, "Hey, here's a boob. Do with it what you will." It's cave girls. it's cave girls fighting dinosaurs. No, I think that's exactly what Richard Sala was going for. And so it shows these young women all trying to survive as they fight. They team up together to fight the carnivore dinosaurs, but they make friends with. I say make friends. They are tolerated by the herbivore dinosaurs, and they figure out that dinosaurs are really just big lizards and the meat doesn't taste that good. So they learn how to hunt. They learn how to take out saber-toothed tigers for food, and they essentially just try to survive.
That'd be pretty gamey too.
You would think so. I don't think carnivore there's a reason that the meat that we eat is mostly herbivore meat. It's not carnivore for the most part. I've had bear meat. It's kind of greasy, but cow,
bears are omnivores.
Pig. Well, that's true. That's true. I don't know of anything that's just a pure carnivore that we eat.
I can't think of any. Fish, maybe.
Alligators.
Oh yeah, gator. Gator's good. I like gator.
Well, we really veered off here.
Welcome to the culinary section.
Yeah, I was wondering why lizards don't taste good.
So as these girls work
Tastes
together,
a bit like popcorn chicken to me.
there's a little bit of a Lord of the Flies kind of creation.
That's what I was thinking.
That pops up in here, but it's not. It doesn't go full blown Lord of the Flies like flies. They have Lord of the Fries. Potatoes.
I am Lord of the Fries.
God, I'm hungry. Just really hungry. So they as they develop, they realize that hey, some girls aren't no matter what going to get along with each other. So they look to their Cro-Magnon neighbors who have a fight pit, and so they fight to the death, and then they just if whoever loses, they just take them off in the woods, and all of a sudden everybody gets along again. But the story is told in 3 parts, and Mom and them are having kind of the same thought, like should we fill this boy's head with these stories? Obviously, these jungle fantasy-esque stories. Is this what we want him to think about women? And so Richard Sala plays into that mindset, but that's the tail end of everything. Most of the story are these just women that are trying to survive on this island, told through these 1-page paintings of just monsters. And dinosaurs, and it's really, really fun. It makes me sad. It was bittersweet reading this book because it's Richard Sala's gone and we're not going to get any more of this. If you read the story that came before this, it gets away from the more pulp stuff that Richard Sala did into more science fiction. Still, there's always a vein of pulp when it comes to Richard Sala's work. It's always there. There's always a vein of this 1930s, almost noir-esque
I always think it's funny when people separate science fiction and pulp anyways, because they pretty much have very similar origins and storytelling.
They were roundabout, but so they were connected because I think they both blossom at the same time. But you think about you think about Tarzan. Tarzan was pulp.
So was Conan.
Yeah, so was Conan, but they're not science fiction. But I think that those stories were...
Flash Gordon was both.
Right, exactly. So and I think, you get a guy like Richard Sala whose literary roots, whose pop culture roots are tapped into that vein, and he can tell different stories different ways, and he blends them well.
Warlord of Mars, also pulp.
Yeah. Science fiction's roots are in pulp.
Right.
Yeah.
It blooms out of that. And so he really knows how to play up, but he doesn't typecast himself. Like, he lets his stories, he leaves them loose so you never know where they're going to go. Like, the thing about Richard Sala is he keeps you on your toes as a reader. Like, because you read one story and it's this girl who gets sucked into a satanic armoire, while there's this evil league of extraordinary villains who are trying to end the world.
It's obviously the one from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, the Devil Cabinet, satanic armoire.
And as she's working through trying not to let these, figure out how to deal with these villains, like there's voices from other dimensions. It brings in some Lovecraftian aspects to it, but it's all told through this very simplistic is not the right word. The way that Sala draws it looks it's deceptively simplistic. If you study these pages, the layouts, the angles, the way that he does are actually incredibly complex. Like the storytelling he does here is masterwork almost, to the point that you almost it's easy to overlook the impact that he had on these types of books, on Fantagraphics, on non big two storytelling, but he is the culmination of things like Raw and Cracked. You get.
I always took Cracked as a spin-off of Mad.
Well, it is. No,
Yeah.
it totally is. But I mean, the work that they did in that had a huge impact on underground comics. Look, Alfred E. Newman has a reach. Like
Indeed.
And so you
I don't
see
think
a
you have
lot
any
of
of
that
that
here.
without Mad.
No, 100%. XY, you don't get XYZ. Robert Crumb. All of that is found in Richard Sala, and he takes the best parts of it and he distills it into.
So there's a spy
his
versus
work.
spy book in there.
There's a spy versus spy story in here. It's not spy versus spy, but it's essentially that.
Yeah. There you
It's mystique, it's intrigue, it's 1930s. Like I said, this noir type of thing that is deceptively simplistic, and like I would love to own a piece of art by this guy, because just the way that he lays out these figures and his women, it's almost it almost makes me think of like the Parker books. The way that he draws, very similar, curvaceous, bombshell yet cartoony, and I don't use that as a pejorative. Women, they're sexy, they're voluptuous, they're curvy, they are gorgeous, but they are not photorealistic. They are done in a way that, as the reader, you have to do the hard work. You have to imagine what they would look like as a human. That's what makes me fall in love with this style of cartooning. I think it's unfair to compare Richard Sala to the Parker books, because I mean, when you're dealing with that, you're dealing with somebody who just was a master. New Frontier was something that changed everything about the way that we look at comics. I think it's just a mastercraft. So I think it's unfair to make that connection, but the roots are there. The family tree, the branches definitely connect at some point. So this is the last work we're going to get from Richard Sala. Like I said, bittersweet moment.
Was that his last book? Last published book?
Yeah. Published 2021. Like I said, right before he died. So bittersweet moment. So go check it out. It's not expensive. It's a Fantagraphics book. It's $30 if you pay full price for it, which we all get a discount at our local comic shop. You can get a discount if you buy it through numerous places online. But it's worth having if you've never read Richard Sala before and you like pulp, you like science fiction, you like monster stories. You like the 1930s just in general.
You shouldn't do that. Yeah, you can like storytelling.
1930s pop culture.
Yeah,
just in general.
There's
some other things about the 30s that weren't so great.
Pretty egregious.
If you like 1930s pop culture,
think
cinema.
Like 1921, but worse. I mean, 2021, but worse.
It's like, wow, that's pretty specific. 1921.
It's not the golden years. You'll like Richard Sala. I almost guarantee it. So go check it out. It's fun stuff. So have I convinced anyone? New Richard Sala acolytes? Maybe so. Well, we got anything else we want to cover before we wrap all these beautiful things up?
So everyone should know that the original Super Friends cartoon series is on HBO Max now.
Nice.
Holy shit.
Bro.
Craig's plans just changed.
Yep.
Yeah.
I tuned in, watched a couple of them last night. It's funny, Dark Side has got every cartoon villain of the day, of the late 70s, early 80s, had the same voice. Dark Side's same raspy, hardcore smoker voice.
The throat lozenge.
Dr. Claw. Yeah, all that. Yeah.
I need to rewatch those. It's been... I need to rewatch those. It's been a while.
I, well, we got anything else we want to cover before we wrap all these beautiful things up?
I need to rewatch those. It's been...
I've seen them in bits and pieces. I don't think I've ever actually seen it in its entirety.
I remember watching them back in the
I don't
day.
know that I ever seen them in their entirety, but I watched so many as a kid that the chances are I've probably seen every episode because it was pretty much, every Saturday. You got 2 hours.
Yeah.
Now
Go there and check it out.
We've got a little bit of time to kill. You want to talk about some TV just real quick? Loki is happening. We've watched up to the second episode of that. Number one, have y'all seen it?
You got a mouse in your pocket?
So you're not?
No.
Not your thing, Craig. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah, I didn't know how I was going to feel about it at the first episode, but the second one really went for it, and I'm on board fully.
Yeah, Owen Wilson's hit and miss for me, but in this show he's kind of hitting pretty good. So.
It's funny. It's weird to see him as old man Owen Wilson, which he's aged into it really well. It's like I'm used to seeing him as
he just wants a jet ski.
That's really all the man wants. He just like what was the line? There was a glorious time in the early 1990s where the mix of subtle beauty and human ingenuity came together and gave us the jet ski.
So you just haven't started it yet?
I watched the first episode,
Yeah.
and I
didn't get it.
I had to force myself to finish it.
Do what?
I had to force myself to finish it.
Oh, okay.
And it just bored the hell out of me.
Yeah. My understanding is this is what is going to be happening in it's kind of the rumor that Marvel's going to be releasing all of their would-be movies in this format going forward. And then just doing their event movies as movies.
That'd be interesting.
So Avengers type stuff will be movies. I don't know if that's true. That's just kind of a rumor that's going on.
I think that rumor is based on the idea that this all ties into Doctor Strange and the multiverse, and so you're going to have stories that take place in multiversal states that will eventually be looped back in as the timeline coalesces again. I'm never a big fan of time as a story trope.
Time travel and time stuff just kind of usually are off-putting to me.
But
yeah, me too.
They've done it well, I should say, in Marvel. I mean, they did it with Thanos, and look, if we want Kang the Conqueror, we're gonna have to deal with time, and I want Kang.
Well, Kang's going to be in the next Ant-Man movie, so
it's just a thing that has to happen. So, also, we are about 4 to 5 episodes in of Sweet Tooth, and oh my god,
I need to get back on it. I've only watched the first episode. It's really good though.
It's they did such a good job with that. All those heartfelt beats, like Jeff Lemire being Jeff Lemire and just doing the damn thing. I didn't think they could do it. I really didn't think you'd take a story like Sweet Tooth or Essex County or something like that, or Underwater Welder.
I figure Essex County, Underwater Welder.
I think those would be
Royal
easier,
City. Those sorts of would, I think, attract viewers more than Sweet Tooth.
Why?
Just because of the content, like people that aren't aware of what that story would be.
Yeah.
You see a kid with antlers, it's gonna turn off some people, and I've actually heard that from a lot of people. I didn't know that I was going to enjoy this. I mean, it's a kid with antlers. I don't know what's going on. And then they watch it and they fall in love with it because it's Jeff Lemire.
Yeah.
But I would think those other ones that are more, they're human without, the hybrid quality. But yeah, I mean, Sweet Tooth's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's if they will stick with it, they can only love it.
Yeah, that's Raj, who has no connection to the actual story, the comic, or anything else. That first issue just took him for a ride.
They're episodes.
First episode. Look, I'm going to call them issues. It's a comic. It's an issue.
What is also hilarious to me is listening to people review these things, and they have no idea they're comic books or graphic novel. And they're talking about it, and it's like, the story's told. You can.
Yeah. That is. I hope it leads people to the book. I know Jesse, somebody who works at our local comic shop. They said, "Hey, if you like this, come check it out." So
yeah.
All right, TV. It's fun times. Next week, Tuesday/Wednesday, new comics are going to hit the shelves as they regularly do. We won't say they always do because 2020 happened, but we try to give you all a taste a little bit. We try to set the menu, so to speak, of what we're going to pick up. can't guarantee they're going to be good. I mean, things happen, but most of the time, I mean, we've got a pretty good track record, I feel like. So what is coming out? What's hitting the shelves next week that you guys are looking forward to?
I'll go. I'm not going to steal either of yours, I promise. Something is Killing the Children, number 17.
Nice.
Boom Studios, or Boom. Is it Boom Studios?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Boom Studios.
James Tinian and Werther Dell'Edera. I'm going to keep talking about this till everybody tells me they're reading this book. We're now getting the backstory on how Erica Slaughter actually entered into the quote-unquote House of Slaughter and became a monster killer for them. So, this book, comic book stores cannot keep the first 2 trades in stock.
Right.
They're selling as fast as they get them in. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's really freaking good. So
Tynan's got to have had like the best 2 years of his life, the past 2 years. Just because he's hitting on all cylinders, it seems like. Except for the one that you would think he would hit on.
Which one?
Batman.
I think he's killing Batman myself. Other than the Ghost Killer,
Yeah,
or Ghost Maker. Other than that, the rest of it's been really solid in my opinion.
No, that's just my opinion. It's not worth a whole lot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we
Your
agree on
opinion
that.
on Batman doesn't count. You like Batcat.
I do. It's really, really good.
Well, from DC Comics, I'm looking forward to Batman Reptillion. This is by Garth Ennis and Liam Sharp. I can't wait for this. This is the first Batman story that Garth Ennis has penned in a long time. You know, Batman had appeared in a few stories here and there that he did. But these were parodies and comedies. So this is the first serious Batman story we have gotten from Garth Ennis. The last one I remember him doing was back in the 90s. And that Liam Sharp is doing the art on this. I can't wait to see what this is all about. I'm fascinated by
Liam
this
Sharp's art's just fantastic.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's incredible.
Did you guys see where he kickstarted an art book
Yep.
got like almost 6 figures?
Yeah.
Backing like. And
Yeah,
the great
good for
thing,
him.
yeah, he was not bragging about it as much as like, oh, look what I did. This is me, and this is why it's awesome. He was bragging about it because he's like, this is going to change my family's life. Like there was such a humility to the way that he put it that it really, I thought it was great.
Did you see Tom King? Do you follow Tom King on?
I do not.
So he's on Twitter and he posts a picture of him at the comic book store with a stack of books, and he's like, "Look at these nerds!" And it's him and his wife, I believe, or daughter, and Mitch Gerard. Is it Gerard?
I think it's
Jared's.
Yeah.
He goes, I don't see any of my books in there. and Tom King goes, I can't handle your 12-panel pages.
Bravo, sir.
He's funny on Twitter.
It was a pretty good exchange.
I am going to. I've turned into kind of a DC stan here. I don't know what's happened. I think they're just doing great things.
Except for their best book.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Except for Batman.
That's not their best book. So,
you're wrong.
No, not at all. It's just not. Anyway, so I've been digging the Green Lantern the last 2-3 issues of Green Lantern, and for a lot of people, I think a lot of folks my age, our Green Lantern is John Stewart. A lot of us grew up with the cartoon.
Speaking for all of us again.
No, I said people my age. Y'all are old as
Oh,
fuck.
he's definitely not talking about us.
Yeah, no, y'all are geriatrics.
My
Y'all,
back.
Alan, it's Alan for y'all, right? That's who. Yeah. Fuck with me, will you?
I don't mind Alan Scott.
No,
but
I
he's
think
not.
I think he's great, dude. His story and the DC Pride thing was awesome, but that is not the book I want y'all to pick up. This next week, Green Lantern, John Stewart, A Celebration of 50 Years in hardcover is coming out. About a $40 book. It's going to be shelf porn. You're going to need to get it. It's going to be rad. You got all kinds of people working on it. Scott Williams, Jim Lee, some of the greats. But it takes you from John Stewart's debut up until.
Is this a compilation? So, I mean, not like an anthology, but this is stories they've compiled
Yeah.
from past.
Yep.
Okay.
It's taking you.
So nothing new. It's just stuff that's like an omnibus type thing.
Don't think it's anything new. So the volume includes Green Lantern, Volume 2, number 87, 182, 185, Volume 3, 74, 156, Volume 4, 49, Mosaic, and Justice League number 110.
I like
So-
when they do these things where you can kind of get
It's
a
just greatest hits.
hits.
It's great.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So go check it out. It's gonna be fun stuff.
You don't have time to read 300 issues of John Stewart's Green Lantern.
John Lantern.
His name should be John Lantern.
Lantern's Green Stewart.
Like I said, a little bit of a more pricey book, but if you don't have like you don't
will
want to
not
pick
give
up a
them
bunch
back
of
Roy.
floppies,
Never
just
mind,
pick up a
sorry.
big compendium. It's going to be good stuff. So, guys, I think we've done work today. We did it like it
feel
was a
like I
job.
worked my ass off.
Feels good.
It does. I feel almost like fucking honorable. or
Nothing
something.
better than checking off a to-do list.
Done, son. If you have spawned humans, happy Father's Day. We hope you have a great day, and maybe you get to take a nap. I think that's really what all fathers want. It's just nap.
Yeah.
New underwear, socks, what have you. But go out and enjoy your day.
Ties, that's always a big one.
Mm,
Yeah, for those of you whose fathers are not around or not around anymore, today can be kind of a hard day. So just get through it. It kind of sucks sometimes. But we hope you all have enjoyed our show. We had fun sitting here talking really for our benefit, not necessarily yours. We're selfish that way. But we will be back next week, I believe, at the same time, same place, to do another one of these. So come back. I think next week's probably our Chaos episode.
You think right.
And so I'm sure Matt has got plans for us. Devious
Chaos
plans.
and plans.
And so it's going to be a little bit less structured, a little bit more freeform. So come check that out. You can find us, if you need us in the meantime, on the Twitter and the Tumblr. Not the Tumblr. We don't do that anymore. The Instagram, the Twitter, the
Grindr.
the Facebook. Shut up,
I'm
Matt.
pretty sure we were never on Tumblr.
Do not get me in trouble. I have no Grindr
OnlyFans,
accounts.
maybe. If you,
We should start an OnlyFans. We should just it'd be like the worst.
worst OnlyFans ever.
No, it's like those really bad firefighter calendars. It's just going to be me just being big without a shirt on. So come check us out. If you got any questions, comments, or concerns, shoot us an email. We're southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. And if we don't have anything further, go forth and love some comics.
Here's a boob. Do what you will.
That's catchphrase. TM. Trademarked.
What did you say?